magic woman, got a black magic woman. I got a black magic woman, got me so blind I can't see. That she's a black magic woman and she's trying to get the devil out of me. Don't turn your back on me, baby. Don't turn your back on me, baby. Don't turn your back on me, baby. You're messing around with your tricks. Don't turn your back on me, baby, cause you must might make up my magic sticks. Whatever. You got your spell on me, baby. You got your spell on me, baby. You got your spell on me, baby. You're turning my heart into stone. Well, I love you so much, Peter Watson, I can't leave you alone. Yeah, there you go. That's the song that stuck it all in the, well, started it all off, stuck it all, don't know where it came from. Anyway, I've got a few, there's really a few things to say, really. I've got something to say anyway. I mean, it was a long time, a lot of years that, you know, I was, how did it start? Oh, we were together for half our lives, really. It started in a little pub called the Nightjar, and we used to call it the Nightmare. I was sat on the bar one day. I'd only been in moved to Western in a short time. I was sat at the bar and I could hear these two guys really having a down a ding dong, and it was Jules or whatever his name was, and it was obviously some sort of musical difference. And I'd been playing guitar for quite a while up to that point, on my own little pubs and gigs and that. Anyway, next side, Jules stormed off and it all disappeared. And I was only sort of sat on a stool, a couple of, you know, one space between me and, didn't know it was Pete Watson at the time. It must have been, what, 1988? I don't know, something like that. And I sort of looked at him and said, I can't remember exact words. I said, well, I can play guitar. I can, you know, I can do a bit of music. He said, oh, right, yeah. Well, what are you doing Saturday morning? I'll pick you up. Where do you know, where do you live and all that? And that was it. We started off, he came round in his little Ford Fiesta, I think it was a greeny coloured thing, hatchback, powered all the amp and the guitar. I'd never been in a band before. No, I wasn't scared, I was excited, and it was all new, and I was only young, with a, just newly married, with a, I think we had James, probably just had him not long, little baby, and off we went. It might have been a Sunday morning actually, to RAF Locking, the Flower Down Centre. That became our home for quite a few years, you know. Well, 3, 4, maybe 5. I don't know. Time just pulls along, and that was it. We sort of started playing along, and after that we became, me and Pete we were like friends and musical compatriots and drinking buddies. Well, I did the drinking and mostly Pete did the spending. I didn't have any money. Nothing's changed really. I still ain't got any bloody money, but all over the years, he sort of supported me, I suppose, in a way, like a fledgling with a broken wing. He looked after me. Well, I did a few bits for him as well over the years, and there are some fantastic stories. Driving to South Wales for our first group, our first gig, even in an old Luton van. There was 3 of us in the back on the thing. I remember at one point driving along in the pouring rain across the, must have been across the Severn Bridge at some point. Decided it would be a good laugh to climb out the little window above the driver's cabinet and scare the shit out of the people in the come over the window. And I said, "Here, Pete, grab me legs." And I was on my way out, and they sort of, "No, Harve, please don't. No, you can't." But and after that, it became Mad Dog, and that's my nickname forever after that. And good crack. That was the craziest gig in the world as well. There were people throwing beer, and it was quite a indoctrination into the world of being in a band and gigs. That was absolutely amazing memory. Playing Luan, what that? There was a pint can flying over my shoulder, hits the back wall, and then Pete Larson's on drums. He carried loads of stories like that. Women dancing and showing their boobies, and hilarious. I remember loads of different things. When he was first met Sarah, and we were in the Nightjar. This is a few years after, after we started off, and he was having a mental breakdown about the split up of him and Val and that. He didn't know what to do, and he was getting drunker and drunker. I think I said the right things or whatever, and I think we drove him home. We drove him back to Savile Crescent or whatever it's called, and he was, "I'm going to tell her I can't go on like this," and one thing and another. So I assume he did, and if you're listening, Val, it was a pretty scary night for me and Melanie, as it happens, who was with us. But I remember all the Christmases. It was great. Every Christmas, probably about late morning or something, it became a sort of tradition for a few years to me, Mel, and I think we only had James then, drive over to Watson's for what was the tradition? Oh, I know. It was a bottle of Jameson's. I don't think we ever drank the whole bottle, but we had a few glasses of that for Christmas morning. And Abby and Sam were there with their latest toys. I remember one year having a keyboard, electronic keyboard. Never didn't even know what one. Oh, that was magic. We never had a keyboard. We hated keyboard in the band. It was a no-no. There were several no-nos. Keyboards was one, and if you mentioned the A word, ABBA, I'll say it now because Pete's not, he's not going to thump me. If you mention that, "Oh, could we do an ABBA song?" You were out of the band. It was simple as that. And the Vox AC30, which is Pete's bread and butter noise machine, there's no way that it could ever have been allowed to play an ABBA song on it. We did do some good stuff, and the one I started with then, Black Magic Woman, was always our it's not a signature tune, it was the song that we started off every gig. It was the first tune. It was one of those comforts tunes. It made Pete play his lead single, his lead breaks, loosened everybody up, and And I remember one year at the Flower Dance Centre, or whatever it's called, RAF Locking, doing a gig there. And the singer, Ian Arundel, as it was at the time, singer saying, I'll tell you what would be good crack. If you could be my backing, black singers in the background, coloured singers in the background. So I don't know if Pete did it. I know I did it, and I know Mike, the bass player, did it. But we had I got one of Mel's stockings and put over my head, and then put my glasses over the top. So we were all sort of blacked out in the background. It was low light as well, because it was like black. Oh, maybe that wasn't that. Yeah. Maybe it was Black Magic one. He was either that or Under the Boardwalk. It might have been Under the Boardwalk. Under the Boardwalk. Yeah, it's probably that. I got it all wrong. See, the brain and the memories fuzzled. Good times though. Absolutely, totally loopy. We did the RAF. What do you call it? SAS camps. We got an agent who used to do lots of gigs, arrange gigs in all the RAF camps, and going to RAF sent AF in, then the SAS base and one thing and another. That was good fun. I remember me and Pete getting slightly left behind in our car at one of the RAF camps, and we were driving around till about bloody 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get off this camp. That was RAF St. Athan, I think, and all there is a camp either end of the village and a runway for fighter planes in the middle. And eventually we got cornered by some military police and escorted off the base with full military honours. I said to Pete, look at that. And there's these bloody jet flying off up thing with its afterburner. I was, God, dear, I think we take the wrong road here. Well, we got home eventually. That was funny. I remember during the IRA thing, he thought it was so, he couldn't believe it. I did it. We going into the RAF locking, and it was really locked down because of the IRA and that. And they were sort of, as you go in, they'd get you to open the boot and sort of search the back of your car. Of course, we're going into rehearsals, and our car was full of gig stuff, besides amps, we got bags with wires and cables coming out of it. And I remember one time, the guard at the gate, he had his gun. I didn't realise they were bloody loaded. He sort of prodded this bag because it had a silver foil. But it was me sandwiches wrapped up in silver foil. And I remember saying something to him like, "Don't you bloody touch that. That's me. That's important." And he sort of looked at me, "That's me sandwiches, Anyway, they let us in. And when I went into the rehearsal later and said to Ian about it, he said, "Oh, well, you were lucky, really, because they are armed with real bullets. There is a red, a serious emergency." Nightmare. What happened to that? Was great. Great days, and I thank Pete for that. We worked. There was I remember when him and Sarah were together, and they first started out. And this is funny. This makes me laugh. This, without going on for too long, but I will. There's good memories, and I need to tell people about them. When Pete and Sarah first started out, and they were just starting there because the G Factor and Instant Furling, the design companies they were with, sort of folded and one thing and another. They had this flat in Bristol. Everywhere's near the river in Bristol, as far as I'm concerned, next to the docks. And I remember going over there because they just started off and they only had a small computer and they didn't have design software on it, PageMaker. Sarah laughed about that. But meantime, since the band had sort of had a hiatus and went to sleep for a while, and we all sort of moved different places. I went to Christchurch from Weston-super-Mare. Pete was now in Bristol, so we couldn't meet up, but we were still mates and still talking and that. And so, meantime, I'd gone to university and got an honours degree in computing, and part of it was software, you know, desktop publishing and all this. And I got older and I became a sort of an expert in setting it up and all that sort of stuff. And you know, Pete said something or other, and I said, "Oh, have you got a PC?" "Yeah, I've got PageMaker." So we went out. I went over and set it up. And of course, you could have like demo versions of the software, but they wouldn't let you in because they'd have keys on them. And I had a book. And in that book was a picture of the you know, the front of the box that the software comes in, and it had the bloody registration number printed on it. And I discovered, well, it saved hundreds of pounds, probably a lot then, back then, 800 quid or something daft, that if I typed in this key out of the book, it would activate the software. So that was amazing. I remember Pete, when I was going back to the station on the way home afterwards, he said, "Thanks, Harve, best mate." Real best mate. No, that their talent was what created the thing. But I always thought, in my back of my mind, I thought I gave him a good helping hand there. So all those years of university and farting around with computing weren't wasted. Went to a good cause. And then I remember I was out of, used to go to Wales and Somerset, selling my my artworks, my paintings and that, which I subsequently, as my tooth got longer, I decided I want to be an artist, visual artist, and I was doing quite well actually. And I had a little gallery space over there, and so I got Pete. We got all together and said, "Why don't we sort of, you know, have another bash at No Sunday License, which is our band?" Oh, that'd be a good idea. Oh, I think Jim Forrest came. We had a meeting over at Pete's in Bristol. They'd moved to Southfield by then. One sort of Saturday or whatever it was. Pete came. I don't think we couldn't get a bass player. I think Lasty would come play the drums. We couldn't get a bass player, so that would have been me, Pete, Jim Forrest, and the bass player. But the bass player, Mick, he was the man from the Prudential. He didn't want to come. So anyway, story short, long, right? Long story short, even. Pete said, "Hey, about time you learn how to play bass." So he just went out. He said, "Saw Thumb can afford one." So we went out and bought a bass player, and somehow I got a bass amp from somewhere. I can't remember, or I had one. And that was it. So then we were a 3-piece then, but we wanted a singer, and luckily my favourite bloke whose name's bloody forgot. I forgot your name. Adam, not Adam. Oh, shit. Anyway, he'll come to me later, and I'll tell you what to do. And he was a great lad. That was that. He came, so we had a singer. Me playing bass, me playing bass, Pete on guitar, and Lasty on on the drums. And Rob, his son, came along as well, he was chip off the block, absolutely brilliant drummer. And off we went, recording it. And after a while, I think we had a few gigs. They were quite amazing. I remember doing Pete's Rise Smile, saying, "Oh, we got to do was it Hey Joe?" oh, that's going to make Harve do a lead bass solo, which boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's magic. And I remember being in a pub and people, it's the first time I'd ever experienced people intently staring at me and watching me, obviously other musos, because the bass player is right out there in front, you know, he's holding the whole thing together. And that was quite, he forced me, he didn't force me to it, he introduced me to that and introduced that song deliberately to improve my playing. And I thank him a lot for that. But I don't think, well, apart from my fingers are now mangled up from stretching all the way up and down the bass guitar. They were good gigs. Those. I remember doing the rehearsal in Bristol, and one day, we were packing up as we finished. This little boy came along. I don't know how old he was. He was just a little kid as we were putting stuff back in the car, and he sort of said, "Hey, mister, you're a good band. Will you come and play my party?" We said, "Of course we will, of course we will." Thought no more of it. And it was weeks and months later. His dad actually turned up and we got a booking in, I think it's the Robbins Club or something like that in Bristol. And of course that was famous. Even that way, they got me singing Should I Stay or Should I Go? It was Matt, the singer. I apologise, Matt. And but in the middle of the song, there's a little middle eight bridge thing, and it sings in Spanish. Well, I'm buggered if I'm going to learn how to speak in Spanish. So I can remember by then, Matt had left. He'd had a few personal issues and getting married and all this sort of stuff. And we couldn't find a singer. So besides saying I'm now the bass player, we kept auditioning singers, but in the meantime, temporary, while we were rehearsing, I was doing the singing. And Pete just looked at me one day, old Wilbur, and he sort of said, "Harve, this is ridiculous. So we keep getting these other singers in, but you're better than them anyway. So you're doing the singing as well." So we became like Police, a three-piece band, which worked quite well for quite a few gigs, and I enjoyed it. But anyway, getting back to the Spanish, so I used to go, "Hola, who is your hubba vida? Es que nada una bani." It sort of made up Wurzel Spanish. It was only a short part of the song, and I just mimic it a bit. And I remember Pete laughing his head off. He's playing. I could see him at the corner of my eye, laughing, trying to play the guitar while I'm at the gig while I'm singing. And what I didn't know was he was looking at the doorman at the club, who was sort of next to me by the stage, and his jaw had dropped to the floor, listening. He couldn't believe what was coming. It was like, I don't know, the Black Abbot, sort of the Mad Dog Society, singing society. But it worked, and no one ever mentioned it. It's only till then. That was great fun. But the camaraderie and the friendship and the tightness, the closeness that you achieve through working together in a close band. For example, I remember we did one at I can't remember now, Shirehampton, someplace like that, in Bristol, just on the outskirts of Bristol. We were waiting to get into this club, and George Harrison's song came on. We all sat in the car, and George Harrison's single came on. Was it "Get My Mind"? I got my mind stuck on you. And we were like in the car. I got my mind stuck on, and we actually learned, because I think Ian Arundel or someone already knew the words, and we learnt that song while we were waiting to go in the club, wrote it down and played it that night, and it went down really well. That's like when you're a tight band and you know each other what's what, that's the sort of things that you could do. We only did it once, but that was fine. It was great. That was a magic night. And I used to have a music stand with all the sheets on. Someone had to play it, you know, relatively solid and structured throughout. And that's the only way I could do it. I can't. And I remember that people used to, this bloke came up to me at the end of the band, this young man, he used to say, yeah, all right, that's bloody professional, you lot. But he's got his music stand with all the music written on it. Of course, it's just me crib sheets, you know. That would work. But you needed those because occasionally, not all the time, but every so often, Pete, just about to start, the singer's introducing the song, Ian Arundel, and Pete would look across me, what key is it in, Harve? What bloody key? You were just about 5 seconds away from saying what the song is. And I just sort of, G. And that was the way it was between me and Pete. When we go to rehearsal, especially in the early days at RF Locking, Pete would write the songs down on a sheet of paper and bung it to me and what have you. And he would know, during the week, he would have remembered the songs and they were there, boom. For the Sunday, for a couple of weeks, he'd know them perfectly. But of course, as time flew, they wouldn't stick. They I don't know. And but I used to be really slow and thick and couldn't get them straight away without the sheets. And so, but after a while, I'd remember them. I'd know them off by heart. So even that was a team thing. What else can you say about Wilbur Watson? Oh, there's another thing. God knows why I called him Wilbur. Will or Wilbur. There's nothing related to Peter Watson. But it's not. It is sad. I mean, I screwed it up. I put my hand up. I don't know what's wrong with me. I think what it was, Pete last moved back up to Cumbria. I don't know, this was probably might have been 9 years ago. Pete last had to go back to Cumbria, so that made it ridiculous. He can't travel down from Cumbria to Fort. So really the band had to give way. And Pete sort of arranged a few sessions with another drummer and another bass player and one thing another. But me heart wanted it. And I remember looking back on it, I always liked to drink a few beers. Well, it's part of a band thing anyway, but I did let him down. I remember one time driving in the afternoon all the way to Bristol for an evening in Weston to do it. And tradition was you went down the Bristol City pub, what can't remember what it's called now, for a couple of pints and then drove to Weston. Trouble is on an empty stomach. And then they got to the pub in Weston where we were rehearsing. Another pint, you get lightheaded. I screwed it up, basically. But I think subconsciously looking back on it, I was thinking the other day, I think my heart had gone. It wasn't No Sunday License anymore without Lasty and one thing and another. It didn't, and strange drummer who had some rather strange habits as well. And later on, they got Adrian or whatever his name is in as the bass player, and me doing the rhythm, back on rhythm guitar, which worked. I thought the rehearsal wasn't too bad actually. And I remember Pete looking across and saying, "See what we've been missing? See what we've been missing?" But my heart wasn't in it. It's a character thing, a personality thing, and it just didn't feel right. And one thing and that, so I screwed it up basically by, I think that particular night, when you drink 4 or 5 pints on an empty stomach, you think you're playing bloody marvellous, but you won't. And I remember, there's no excuse really, but we did have a gig the three of us in Bristol in a pub, and that went bloody pear-shaped because I drank too much. Sounds like a confession period now, but I always maintain that I wasn't drinking too much. The bartender spiked me drink because I just wanted a small something small. It wasn't a pint of beer, it was just a glass of lemonade or something. And I don't know if he put half a vodka or something in, but when you're hot and singing on the band, you know, halfway through you just drink and don't even realise you're drinking. And I'm convinced that it was something strange in it that I wasn't used to. Anyway, that's by the by. The band sort of folded in that regards, and then we sort of over the last 8-10 years, I always figure that I'd upset Pete there, but it wasn't my intention really. It's just one of those things. But that aside, everybody does it. Still sent me a Christmas card. What more do you want? And then this last Christmas Eve gone, out of the blue, I get a Facebook messenger comes up, sort of, you know, hi Harve, how's things? Sorry I haven't been in touch, but things have been pretty scary with Sarah being poorly and one thing and another. Funny really, she's had cancer, I've had cancer. It was sort of the No Sunday License, the cancer club really. I remember Pete last had a stroke and one thing and another. So old age, or the agey bit catches up, but it was lovely to sort of even just chatting to him there on Facebook, saying, you know, and I remember saying to him, you know, the times that I had in Bristol when I used to drive up on the Saturday, we'd go out, have a few beers. Again, I didn't have any money, as much as I could do to find the petrol money to get there and back. But Pete and Sarah supported me then, like a fledgling starling with a broken wing, or an empty wallet in my case. And yeah, I loved them for that. And funny thing is, those days I said to Pete, Christmas Eve this just gone, that those days are embedded in my mind and my soul. You know, they were the best days. I can't remember any better ones. They were important. They kept me in a few beers for a weekend. It was something to look forward to, but it wasn't that. It was the getting in the rehearsal place and on a Sunday morning doing some songs together and one thing and another, and hearing the Vox AC30 blaring me head off. But there was a few moments during that period where Pete Last and Rob, his son, playing the drums, me on bass singing, and Pete on guitar. There was times there when we played, I don't know how many years, but say it was 10 years or more together as a band. There were times where then it was a bit like the Beatles. There were like three guys that really had something special, and were playing in unison. I mean, I remember playing Hey Joe, Matt was in that one, and it was like the hair. You can always tell when you do something really good like that. Your hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and you just, it's almost like you're in it, but you're out of it. It's like you're dreaming, looking in on yourself. I think that can't be me. And there was a few moments where it was like that. Here's a good one. When we didn't have a lot of dosh and recording studios with dear. And I remember using computer skills, and so we had to edit a cassette recording that we'd done. So I had this brilliant idea. What we did, we put 2 sound cards in one computer, and then we could plug the 2 guitars, one in each sound card, and record it. And we did it because the track that we'd recorded in the studio, I don't know if it was the vocal or something wasn't right, and we overdubbed it using his manky old computer with 2 PC sound cards in and a bit of sound software that was, I can't remember what it's called, but that was the sort of thing we used to do. It was quite clever, really. We'd invent different, well, make needs must, and we make it up. Not like now where you've got sort of gizmos. I've got more gizmos now, and we had as a band, I think. But it was warm feelings. But like I said to Matt the other day when he told me that Pete had passed, I just said, you know, that's what I meant when I said my heart's broken in a way. But it's like another lad said that Pete played in a few bands in between not seeing him and one thing or another. And the bloke was saying, I can't remember his name, but it doesn't matter anyway, that Pete encouraged him and made him, in a funny way, because Pete has frailties and plays guitar. If he can do it, then he can make you do it. If he's that good, then it makes you that good. And if he says you're okay and confident, he has to play with you. So in order for him to do that, you have to be at a certain level to make, you know, he's not going to play with any old dumb chuck. So in that respect, Matey Boy was right when he said, you know, encouraged him, got him over his confidence issues and one thing or another. One of the reasons I used to do it, because I used to have anxiety syndrome and all that sort of thing. Well, how do you confront your frailties? Just jump in and do that head on, and you can't let the other guys down. So that's a positive thing that Pete brought, really. He encouraged you to do it. So from that point of view, awesome. I'll miss him. But all I've got is amazing memories of Val, Sam, Abby, Sarah, the kids, you know, the Nightjar. We used to get up some daft things. We even played a gig in there of just me and Pete together. I think I had a guitar and microphone and did a few songs. And I remember the lady in there saying, one of the customers saying, yeah, didn't realise you could sing. Maybe that was a portent of things to come later. But anyway, I've still kept the No Sunday license. I suppose me and last year, Ian Arundel's still out there, but I've sort of carried the torch for a little while. I've bought actually I've got a website domain name, No Sunday license as well. At some point I'll tweak things up and maybe, well, I'll create a little place online for dedicated to No Sunday license, even though, touch wood, I'll carry on producing a few songs as well. I'm still working on Black Magic Woman. I figured, well, that was the first one we started with, so maybe either, well, I won't say it's the end song, but maybe that's the one I should start with. Well, I'm going to record it and add a bit of Pete's guitar on it if I can. With the technology you've got now, I can isolate his guitar over some of the cassettes I've got, recording cassettes that we did at rehearsal, and then try and superimpose that on it. That'd be nice. I've got a task to do there. But anyway, It's been a bit longer this than I thought, but I thought I had something to say, and I'd like to say, basically, well, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not. Well, it's difficult not to get a bit teary, but I just like to say I don't drink anymore. But I would say, when we green tea, thanks, Pete. You're like my. It's almost like I've lost my elder brother. But it was a pleasure working and knowing you and all the rest of it. And love to Sarah. Keep well. And lastly, I'll bring you at Christmas. All the best. Harve. How'd you switch this bloody thing off? Oh, for fuck's sake.